Welcome to Slow American English, the podcast for learners of American English. I'm your host, Karen Tolliver. This is episode number 43, New Orleans. Before we begin, please support the podcast and become a patron. For $1.25 per month, you get natural speed recordings for each episode. For $2.50 per month, you get the natural speed recordings plus exercise worksheets for each episode. For $2.50 per month, you get the natural speed recordings plus exercise worksheets for each episode, including answer keys. Every patron receives all past and present recordings and worksheets, depending on the level. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/slowamericanenglish. Also, buy Slow American English workbooks on amazon.com. Workbooks contain all the transcripts and exercise worksheets for each episode for an entire year, 12 episodes in each workbook. In addition, you can become a website subscriber for free at www.slowamericanenglish.net. Find free transcripts there, plus links to become a patron and to buy workbooks. Subscribe to the podcast feed via Apple Podcast, Android, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and any other RSS feed reader. Contact me directly via email at info@slowamericanenglish.net. Now for the podcast. History. The port city of New Orleans, Louisiana, was founded by the French in 1718. It occupies the mouth of the Mississippi River and part of the delta where the mighty river flows into the Gulf of Mexico. The city passed into Spanish hands in 1763. The French regained possession of New Orleans in 1803 and sold it to the USA as part of the Louisiana Purchase. After this, there was a large influx of Americans, French, and other Europeans, Africans, and Creoles. Creoles were descended from Europeans, Africans, and Native Americans, but were born in Louisiana. Today, the greater New Orleans area has about 1.167 million people. Hurricane Katrina. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina made landfall in New Orleans, causing major destruction. Because about half of New Orleans actually lies below sea level, when the levees and flood control mechanisms failed, 80% of the city flooded. The local, state, and federal governments have been strongly criticized for their lack of preparation before the storm and their failures in the aftermath. Many people died, and the city is still rebuilding. The population dropped significantly after the storm because many people did not return after evacuation. Things to do. New Orleans has all the typical big city features, but here are some sites unique to New Orleans. Historical mansions from the 1800s in the Garden District. Above-ground tombs in Lafayette Cemetery No. 1. Bodies are not buried underground because the city is at or below sea level. Shops, galleries, and restaurants in the famous French Quarter district directly on the Mississippi River. Bourbon Street, probably the most famous street in the French Quarter, well known for a place to drink alcohol and party to excess. Paddle wheeler steamboat tours on the Mississippi River. Original art by artists on Jackson Square near St. Louis Cathedral. Horse-drawn carriage rides through streets with Spanish architecture. Listen to the driver telling legends about the town. Famous streetcars on St. Charles Avenue. Mardi Gras. Every year, just before Ash Wednesday, the giant Mardi Gras celebration takes place in New Orleans and surrounding cities. People come from all over the world to experience dozens of parades over 2.5 weeks. Groups called crews dress in elaborate costumes and dance through the streets to lively music, throwing strings of plastic beads to the spectators. It's a wild time. Music. Jazz originated in New Orleans, and there is no shortage of it today. It seems like there is music pouring from every doorway in the French Quarter. You will hear all kinds of live music, from street musicians to organized concerts, including Cajun music and Creole Zydeco. The famous Preservation Hall was established in 1961 to preserve jazz heritage, with over 350 concerts a year. Food. Because of the diversity of New Orleans throughout history, the food there is unique. You can dine on Creole and spicy Cajun food. You can even find alligator meat at many restaurants. Here is some traditional New Orleans food. Po' boy, overstuffed sandwich on a French baguette. Gumbo, seafood stew served over rice. Boudin, sausage. Jambalaya, thick stew cooked with rice. Crawfish, small lobster-like shellfish. Étouffée, crawfish, shrimp, or chicken stew served over rice. Pralines, candy made with pecans and brown sugar. Beignets, square fried donuts at Café du Monde in the French Quarter. Café au lait, a coffee chicory combination mixed with hot milk served with beignets. Oysters Rockefeller, invented at Antoine's in the French Quarter. French Creole cuisine, specialty of Arnaud's in the French Quarter. Sazerac, world's very first cocktail, invented in New Orleans. Language note. A large part of the population of New Orleans is Cajun. Cajuns are descended from French settlers who lived in Canada in an area named Acadia. They were forced to leave in 1713 and settled in Louisiana. The word Cajun evolved from the word Acadian. Because of New Orleans' diversity, fascinating dialects and accents have evolved. There are even several pronunciations of the city's name. You can say New Orleans, like me, or New Orleans, New Orleans, or New Orleans. Often, people write the name as NOLA, NOLA, which stands for New Orleans, Louisiana. LA is the official postal abbreviation for the state. You may also see and hear Nolans, but don't use this. It tells the locals you don't know anything about their city. New Orleans is called the Big Easy because of its easygoing, laid-back atmosphere. It's called the Crescent City, too, because of the arced path the Mississippi River takes through it. That's the podcast for this time. Slow American English is written and produced by Karen Tolliver. Copyright 2018. All rights reserved. For a free transcript and to subscribe to the podcast, visit www.slowamericanenglish.net. You can also subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, TuneIn, and any other podcast feed reader. Theme music for this podcast is written and performed by S.W. Campbell and used by permission. Find more music by this artist at www.soundclick.com/swcampbell. This has been Slow American English. I'm Karen Tolliver. Thank you for listening.